We are Heather and Paul Christie.
And for over 12 years, we've worked with executives and entrepreneurs to accelerate change in every aspect of their business.
Because we are in the fastest paced business environment that anyone has ever seen before.
So join us for the Evolve to Win show. Good morning and welcome to another Evolve to Win show with Heather and Paul.
Today, we're going to be talking about utility. And don't worry so much about the words that we're going to use to describe utility. Think more about how we describe them and what it means to you. So when we talk about motivators, we are on part 4 now, right? Of a 7-part series.
Yep.
And we're talking about utility today. And basically what that is how we value practicality, how we value return on investment.
Time.
Yep. Effort.
Yep.
Energy.
Yep.
Money. It just everything that relates to return on investment. And so we're going to play again 2 different roles where Paul is going to be someone who he calls resourceful. So that is a person who values what?
Well, ultimately values their time.
Okay.
And what they get for their time. So the return on investment. So I'm somebody who is, when I do something, I want it done quickly and I want to do it for a reason and I want to get something for it.
Yeah. So when you invest your time in anything, your time, your effort, your resources, you want to put in the least amount necessary for the most practical return.
Yes.
Okay. So that's on this side of the spectrum.
That's resourceful.
We're going to call that resourceful. And on the other side of the spectrum, we're going to call it selfless. And that's somebody who's not so interested in what's in it for me or what can I get back. It's really how much can I put in any kind of effort to get the right kind of product, right? So I am really, really much more interested in quality. I'm more interested in whatever effort it takes, doesn't really matter. I just want to make sure that whatever I'm putting out there is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's come up with a practical example. Let's say that we've got a project that we're working on.
Okay.
And we're working together on a team. Can you see how we could be challenged by each other? So if we're working together on a team, your way of being and working on the project is going to be what?
I just want to work fast, efficient, maybe even by myself. I want to make sure that, again, I put in the least amount of effort to get the biggest bang for my buck.
Okay. I, on the other hand, am more interested in making sure I get it right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in making sure that I put in whatever effort is necessary. So you might look at me and say, you're spinning your wheels. Why are you doing that? That's not even necessary for this project. And meanwhile, I'm just concerned with getting it done in the best way possible. So for you, if we're having a meeting on this project, what might that meeting look like for you compared with me?
Well, I'm going in thinking it's going to be a 5-minute meeting.
Hoping.
Yes, hoping. And it turns into an hour meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there like just fuming.
Mm-hmm. So inside, you're feeling angst when a meeting goes long.
Right.
For me, there's no such thing as a meeting running long. Like longer is better.
Yeah.
Because maybe we could do a better job if we talk, especially, so let's say that we're in a meeting and we're really onto something. We've got this new idea that we're exploring.
Yeah.
I have no trouble extending that meeting. Let's just keep talking because maybe something really good can come out of it. And meanwhile, you're thinking what?
We have everything we need to get started. Let's do it.
Yeah. So you can see how the distinction between...
Like we're wasting time. Like all this time, this extra 55 minutes we could have spent in actually doing what we said we were going to do, planning on what we were doing.
Yeah, and here I am thinking, but what if we're just on the cusp of finding this really great idea that's going to serve the client even better, right? So in the real world, Paul and I are both on the resourceful side. So me even playing the selfless part is a struggle for me. But I'm going to share with you, I was recently talking with a client who was really on the selfless side of the spectrum. So his value was pouring in whatever resources are necessary to make sure that the work product is the best product. And he actually said these words to me, and I quote, "Time doesn't really matter." And I thought, and he's the boss, by the way. So it's really interesting if you have a boss who's really far on this side of the spectrum, what that's going to look like is when you stop in for a quick meeting with the boss, there's a good chance that that meeting is not ever going to be quick. That meeting is going to take as long as it takes until your boss feels like they've covered all the different aspects that they want to cover.
Yeah.
Right?
So remember, these are hidden motivators. So you don't see this unless, well, you may see it because it turns into an action, but this is what people are driven by. So these are one of the hidden motivators, driving forces that we could potentially have within us that make us act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm high resourceful, I'm going to act in a quicker, more efficient, more return on investment. My mind is always going to how quickly can I get a result? Whereas the selfless person is going to be driven internally by, we can take our time a little bit on this. It's better if we spitball it. It's better if we work out all of the opportunities that we may have and then come to an agreement on something.
Yeah, so I'm driven by completion of a task, not how much time, effort, or energy I put into it. I just want to get it done well. So one of the stressors, and here's a great way to figure out what this motivator is like for you if you're sort of uncertain. One of the stressors for someone who's on this selfless side of the spectrum is that I feel really stressed out if I'm being judged solely on efficiency. Because of course, efficiency is not my primary motivator. That's yours on the other side of the spectrum.
Yep.
And a stressor on your side of the spectrum, if you're high resourceful, if you're very resourceful, it would be really stressful if you knew that you were wasting time or wasting resources.
Right.
So let's say that the boss is on your side of the world,
Yeah.
resourceful.
Okay.
And let's say you have someone on the team who's selfless and they miss project deadlines and maybe miss them sort of regularly because they're just not focused as high, like they don't value efficiency as much as they value the work product. So you can see that if there's somebody on your team who just keeps missing those deadlines, there's a good chance that their motivator is not about efficiency. Their motivator is about getting it done well, getting it done right.
Yeah, and maybe the solution, because I mean, the first thought, it's like, well, we need to move this person on to a different position, or maybe there's just not the right fit for the company.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that what a high resourceful person, a boss, could do with a selfless is just give deadlines and say, this is the time that needs to be done, and you have to agree to it.
And of course, deadlines will stress me out because
Yes.
I don't really like the deadline. I never feel like I have enough time to get done what I need to get done. And so making sure that you have that dialogue with, whoever you're working with, that, look, the way to get this project done well is to get it done on time. And this is the time that it needs to be done.
Yeah, and it seems like that, at least for me, and maybe it's because we're resourceful, it seems to me like, oh boy, resourceful is like the get it done person. Don't we all want to be like that? Don't we all want to have somebody like that? Well, certainly we have to have a balance of those people, but the selfless person generally is, because they're not worried so much about time, they do put a lot of thought, they do put a lot of, they're more perfectionistic, where they could actually work on problem solving, coming up with better ideas. That's a type of more creative, potentially, as a selfless person.
Well, and I feel like the selfless person is always thinking that they're going the extra mile, right?
Right.
Always thinking, I'm putting in extra effort to make sure I'm doing this right. The perception from the selfless side could be, what, are you lazy? Because you're not putting a whole lot of effort in.
Right.
Here I am doing all of this work. You're looking at me going, why are you doing all that work? It's not even necessary. And I'm looking at you saying, you're not doing enough work. You're lazy, or you just don't care. So you can really see how the different perceptions on either side of the spectrum, there are people out there who judge other people.
Yeah.
Based on their actions. And so just start to recognize where you fall. How do you value utility? Are you more about efficiency, get it done as quickly as you can and in the most practical, functional way? Or are you more interested in putting in all sorts of extra effort and looking at different angles and having lots of conversations to make sure that you're doing the best that you can do?
Yeah, and not everybody's on one end of the spectrum and the other. There are people that are in the middle that can play both sides of it. But the point that we're making is in this whole series that we're doing is that there are reasons why people have conflict with each other. And it's because of a lot of the hidden motivators and then the behavioral styles that we have. We all are different and complex people, of course, right? But
some are more complex than others.
Yeah. But how this is broken out, and it's done by scientists, and this technology has been around for hundreds of years, really. Yeah. That we're broken down into certain motivators, certain behavioral styles that truly make us up, but we judge people just on actions or doing things. And because we're different from other people, that we start to judge them and think that they're wrong or their thinking is off, but actually they're just different from us because of these motivators, because of these behavioral styles.
So it's not hundreds of years. I was just looking at my notes to find out when Edward Spranger first actually started.
It's like in the 20s or 30s.
But the reality is we don't know what our hidden motivators are until we actually know. And it wasn't until I first took an assessment that I got to see mine. And again, it was hard for me to connect with, well, why does it really matter to me? But it really matters because the motivators that are hidden within us, the stronger they are, they're the why behind every single thing that we do. So, depending on the strength of your motivators, you will feel it inside, but you won't necessarily know why you're feeling the stress of something. And technically, if you're feeling a lot of stress about something, chances are good that one of your motivators is not being served. So it's hugely valuable, especially in the workplace, not only to understand your own motivators, the why behind what we do. So behaviors is how we do things. Motivators is why we do what we do. And so this particular motivator on utility, if I'm driven by being selfless, I am going to want to always take extra time. And chances are good, I'm going to take too much time and I'm going to burn through too many resources and I'm going to miss too many deadlines if I'm extreme. You, on the other hand, if you're on the extreme of resourceful, you may not put in enough time. You may not look at enough data or information. You might move too quickly and you might miss some steps. So there are strengths on either side, and there are also those potential limitations. Really valuable to know about you. And if you're in a leadership position, I can't imagine leading somebody without knowing how they're motivated. Because if I don't know how they're motivated, how can I get the best out of them? How can I tap into those mad strengths that they have?
Right.
So that's why we're talking about, that's why we're doing this series on motivators. And if you have any questions about it, reach out to us. You can always find us at heatherchristie.com. If you haven't already signed up for our leadership list, please connect with us there. So let us know if you have any questions.
And also, I just want to add just an action item to this and to this series that we're doing. When we talk about utility and the selfless and resourceful person, I want you to think about, do you know somebody that's like that? Is that you? Somebody had mentioned typed into us that they're in the middle. So first of all, think of yourself and figure out whether you're selfless or in the middle or resourceful. And then also maybe think of somebody at work that is the opposite of you and see how you're reacting with that person.
The more extreme you are, by the way, the opposite motivator makes you crazy.
Right.
And so you may be reacting to somebody, like violently reacting to somebody. And what's happening is you're just misaligned on your motivators. Once you understand that, you can work so much better together.
Yeah.
So if you want to know the science behind it, if you want to actually get clear on what your motivators are, you can take an assessment and you can have it, you can see it in writing on graphs, show you exactly where you are and how you compare with the rest of the population. So Paul and I always have our little cheat sheets here in front of us that tell us where we are, our top 4 motivators along with our behaviors. And we actually keep these on our desks, and I've got one for me and one for Paul. So I can remind myself at times when we are in a challenging situation. That never happens, does
No.
it, by the way?
No.
Can you imagine working with your spouse and living with your spouse? Yeah, so it happens all the time. And we have to remind ourselves constantly that most of the conflict that we experience is because we are the opposite. Put yours up for a second.
Yeah.
We are the opposite from each other. We are two totally different people. And so, of course, we are going to face many, many conflicts. And yet, when we really understand how to tap into each other's strengths and adapt our style to kind of minimize that conflict, that's what makes it work. That's what makes the team a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So thank you for watching and listening to another Evolve to Win show, and have yourself a great day.
Have an awesome day.
Bye now.